I'm having tea for one. There we go. Here we are.
Oh, whoa. Stay on the stool.
Don't fall off this. Try not to fall off the stool.
Good start. Welcome to the adventures of Moose and Squirrel Quilters. I am Terry Santra from Purple Moose Designs.
And I am Penny Demikis from Cabin Quilters.
Today, we are going to talk about our most impactful class. And that can mean a lot of different things. That can be a class we took, a class we taught, and why was it impactful, whether that was in a good way or a bad way or both. So, Penny, go first.
All right. So I was thinking about this topic and there it could go two ways. So I have two things to talk about. One of them is the most impactful class that I took. But also the most impactful class that I taught. And that one is, let's start with that one because it's a kind of a misadventure, right? And I've got a
No.
sample. I know it was okay. Note set your stuff on a trash can, okay? Because it moves around when you try to get it. Okay, so I was teaching, it was a really lovely shop up in Maryland that I just really loved the owners of. And they weren't they were just a quilt shop. They weren't a sewing machine shop. They weren't a technical shop at all. They just had lovely fabrics and they had this beautiful upstairs area where they sold all their fabrics in a downstairs classroom. So they were so lovely to me and we used to do shows together, the same shows. And so they asked me to come and teach a couple of classes, and everybody had a great time. And so one day they called and asked me if I would teach a machine quilting class. And I had taught it many times before, doodle quilting. And really, it's just a free motion class, and it just gives you some ideas on how you would, if you don't have a lot of skills, how you would start, just a place to start, and some doodles to make on your quilt, and how to take those doodles and then start actually, using some of the techniques that long armers and machine quilters use to quilt your stuff. And so I showed up to the class and I had my little Janome Gem Gold, classroom sewing machine with the table and the whole bit, and I was ready to go. And it was a lovely bunch of ladies in there. And so we all sit down and I go, okay, let's everybody, we did the beginning of the class, the intro and all that kind of stuff. And let's take our free motion quilting feet out of our thing and attach them to our sewing machine if we haven't done so already. And we're going to drop our feed dogs and do some free motion quilting. And I look out into the sea of lovely ladies. And one of the ladies, her sewing machine was a very basic machine and it quit working almost immediately.
Oh no.
So she couldn't get hers to thread. There was something stuck in the underneath of it. And of course, there's probably 12 to 16 people in this class right now. So it wasn't small. Um, and everyone else in the class, and I mean everyone else in the class, had recently purchased a new sewing machine from the local sewing machine dealer who sold Elna's. And guess what? The only sewing machine I'd never sewed on was. And I guess they had an amazing sale on these sewing machines. Everybody had a computerized machine. Nobody knew how to run their machine. Nobody knew how to drop their feed dogs or if their feed dogs could be dropped. Nobody brought a manual for their brand new sewing machine they didn't know how to run. I couldn't even tell you what the sewing machine free motion quilting foot looked like. I had to look it up on the internet, which I'm in the basement now of this shop in the middle of nowhere, no internet. It was harrowing. And basically, they're all standing around my Janome Gem Gold trying to learn all the techniques that I was trying to teach them. I did manage to have three of the ladies who were clearly accomplished sewers sort of kind of figure out how to work their machine. And so together we tried to get everybody to do the thing. And then I have the little sample. This was just a little wall hanging sample.
How
And so
cute.
all through the sample, there's little marks on it where I showed everybody how to do different designs, squiggles, and all that. And I'll draw your attention. So one of the things that I showed them how to do was to take a piece of like tablecloth plastic. They used to sell it at Joann's or sometimes even Walmart. It's just the long rolls of plastic that my grandmother used to put a tablecloth on the table and then she'd put this giant piece of plastic on it so it could be
Right.
wiped off. And I had a piece of that I'd put the quilt up on the wall and I'd tack that on top of it. And then I would draw things with dry erase markers to show them how, what types of things you could do. And then I'd wipe it off. And at one point in time, I'm so like freaked out and I'm trying to show them stuff. And I hadn't noticed that the pin holding the plastic had fallen. And I took a marker
Oh
and
no.
I drew on my own quilt top. My own
Oops.
sample. Now, you may not think that's too big of a deal. This has been ink away, everything I can think to try to get that stain out. This is used to be really black. Now it's kind of grayed out, and I'll live with it forever if I can't get it out. It's actually a little stiff here. I think it's still got some stuff in it, but um, just it was like a 5 hour class, I think. And I swore on that day that I would never teach doodle quilting ever again because I was clearly not prepared. I was so prepared. I'd taught this class millions of times. I was so not prepared. And it kind of makes you think because when you're prepping to teach a class, we almost kind of think of all the ways things could go wrong. Like every time I
Yep.
go somewhere with fusible, I take iron off and a rag, and you just think of all the things that people are going to need or samples you're going to need. I mean, there's so much prep that goes into teaching these classes. We don't just show up and be like, okay, here we go. We're going to wing it. Some people might, but we just don't do that. And I was so prepared, and yet I wasn't prepared. I
The
was not
universe was against you.
the universe was against me the whole day. And there was nothing I could do. There was nothing I could do. I felt awful. Everybody was lovely. The shop was lovely. The students were lovely. One of the girls who couldn't get her sewing machine working just sat and quilted on my machine, which was for a time the only working machine in the place. But it was like I came home and you just come home and you just feel battered. I was battered from teaching that class. So that was my cute little doodle quilting class with a wall hanging, and never again. And I've removed it. I don't have it in my class list anymore. I don't do any of it. It's so sad. Um, it's also I have to do the quilting 101, one of the final videos, and I'm
Oh,
sitting here I still have PTSD. Uh, I still have PTSD.
so
So
there's not going to be any doodle quilting in the Quilting 101
no,
final episodes.
there's gonna be doodle quilting. It's going to be a doodle quilting thing, but I'm struggling. I'm in therapy now. I'm in therapy. I have some homework to do before I get that done, but it was so crazy how you just, you know, whatever. It was insane. Have you ever had a class like that just went all to holy hell?
Um, yeah, I've had those as well. I taught one class and it was a fusible project and I provided kits for everybody. And we get down to the last little part and these little circles and they were all pre-cut. They have fusible on the back. And this one woman, in the instructions that I gave everyone, it was please pre-wash your fabrics to get anything off of the fabrics before we fuse onto it. And she did not do that. She had brand new fabrics and nothing would stick to, I don't know what was on her fabric, but nothing would stick to it. And I ended up giving her like three of the different kits. And it's like finally the last one, I was like, you know what? Just take this home, wash your fabrics, please, and try it again. It was, everybody else was fine in the class and all their projects came out and it was like, so it's not my stuff, it's your stuff. But I don't know what was on that fabric, but clearly it did not
At least it
Um,
wasn't everyone. At least it was
no,
one, because we always
yeah,
have, I think when you teach a class, I think you always have, one student
yeah,
that is, it just struggles. And it's sometimes it's not their fault. The universe is just against them that day.
yep,
Or whatever. Or you have somebody that, comes classically unprepared or didn't read the description and thought it was a beginner class and it wasn't. You always have,
yeah.
those moments, but this was every
Everyone,
student.
that would
There
be
was
awful.
no one in the class that could really it was awful. It was awful. So anyway, that was my most impactful taught class. Did you have a couple different ones, or you want me to go on to the next one?
Um, I don't really have any that I've taught. Um, Actually, there was one class early on in my teaching career, and I was teaching a class, and it was a chain link pattern, so it only had three fabrics, and you needed high contrast between the colors to get the chain link effect of the quilt. And this one woman came in with three of the same fabrics in different colorways that were all very close. And I was like, you may want to go out to the quilt shop and out into the front and get something else because this isn't gonna work. Um, and she's like, no, I really like these fabrics. It's like, well, you can like these fabrics, but you're not going to see the pattern. There's not enough contrast.
Yeah.
Nope, nope. She insisted she's going to make that. Okay, fine. I've said it. I can't say it any more forceful.
Not your, yeah, it's not my quote.
At the end of the class, she's like, I don't like this. It's like, yes. And why is that? Because there's no contrast. So she learned an important lesson that day about contrast. But that's hard when you know something's not going to turn out well and you tell them that and they don't listen. And I get it. She spent the money, she bought the fabric, she liked the fabric. I get that. But when the person teaching the class is telling you that isn't going to work
Yeah.
and they don't listen, and then they're like, this didn't work.
Yeah, I taught one with an all scrapped out class one time, and it was a modern quilt guild. And I'm not really a modern quilter, but I'm a traditional quilter. And I remember one of the ladies in there, she picked up like four different sizes of tumblers. And she's like, I'm so excited. I'm gonna make a quilt. It's gonna look awesome. It's gonna have all this negative space, blah, blah, blah. And she took all the four tumblers. And I was like, okay. I said, I don't know how you're gonna get those to fit together. She goes, oh, I've got this. I know exactly. And you think, okay, modern quilters do all kinds of funky stuff. I don't know. This is gonna be really fun. And I said, okay, just, there's 27 different patterns you could choose from in here, and you're going off book. So just remember you went off book,
Yep.
you know. And so she came to me about three-quarters of the way through the class and she goes, I love this technique, but how am I going to get all these to work together? It's like,
I've,
oh,
I've
you
heard that
sister,
before somewhere.
all you sister, remember when I said that? And I was like, I don't know how you're going to do that. I mean, I thought you had it. I thought you were making your way in the world. I don't know. Um, but yeah, so when you're that kind of touches on the teacher part, but when you're taking a class, like my most impactful class I ever took, I think was very early on. I mean, obviously I took beginner quilting and I had sewed and knitted and things with my grandmother, but I really hadn't quilted. We'd never quilted when I was an adult. I was mom when we took the class. And so that general class was awesome. I really enjoyed it. But when I want to learn something, I don't necessarily want to know the right way. I don't want to use that term, the right way to do it, but I would like to know enough that I can challenge myself to be really good at something. Like
Mhm.
I don't want to halfway, kind of half-ass it. I want to go all the way. So, and I really wanted to learn. I liked it enough. I really wanted to learn. And I knew there were patterns out there that I liked. I knew how to do basic piecing, but I knew I didn't know how to do curve piecing, and I didn't know how to do paper piecing and foundation piecing, and I didn't know a really good way to quilt. and I didn't hadn't done applique and what are Y seams and all these terms that were coming at me. And it's like, I really want to take a class to learn all that stuff. And so I signed up for a class um, at a quilt shop relatively local to me. And it was really not a cheap class. And it was probably 7 or 8 classes all together
Mhm.
that you had to go back. And it was called Learn to Quilt. It wasn't a beginner class though, but it was called Learn to Quilt. So it basically touched on every single topic. And I had to quilt. And so we started with our little rail fence blocks and then our half square triangles and our quarter square triangles and all these fun things. And we wound up doing a sawtooth and all that. And so you had to buy a kit. I remember that. So they picked all the fabric. And so we would come to the shop every day and that we had class and we would do it and then we would go home and it would be like, I don't know, 3 weeks later or something, we'd have another class. So we'd have all our homework done because everything built this big sampler.
Mhm.
And about 3 classes in, probably 3 or 4 classes in to maybe a 7 to 9, class. We got to the shop that day and they were having an out of business sale.
Oh,
And I was like, well, apparently, not only did they not tell the customers that they were going out of business, and it was not a surprise. They didn't tell any of the instructors either.
oh,
And they had taken all of our money to do this class. And I was a young mom at the time, so it was not cheap, and I didn't have a lot of money. And so it was a good investment for me. And so the lady who taught it, and her name is Kathy Lincoln, so shout out to Kathy, um, was an awesome instructor, very, very knowledgeable. And she said, this really isn't fair. And there weren't very many of us. I think there were only like 4 or 5 of us in this class. And she said, I'm going to give you my address and I'm going to have you all to my home and we're going to finish this class because you paid for it.
wow.
And yeah, it was really, really nice. So she gave us her home address and the rest of the classes we spent going to her house to learn all the steps. And it was an excellent class because it gave me an opportunity to touch so many different topics all in the same quilt so that I got confident that if I saw something that was applique, I could do it. I knew all
Yeah.
kinds of different methods and I would be able to do it. Or if I saw something with Y seams, I could tackle it. And I knew where the challenges were in, what I needed to know, or how to rewrite the patterns so that I didn't have that. So I learned so much. I could get very, very confident. And I also learned as a future instructor, because at the time I had no idea that I would have this as a job, that, there's an opportunity for you to have really good morals and ethics
Oh, yeah.
and make it work for the students when it needs to be. And it kind of set the tone for how she taught, all the things she thought about when she taught, and the fact that she really felt as though, it was her responsibility to make sure that we got our class. She didn't
That's
have to
nice.
do that, but it was really, really lovely. And so that's the most I ever learned or got out of a class ever, um, for all kinds of reasons, from that one. So it sticks with me, you know, kind of like your, you know, third grade teacher, that one teacher you'd have that
Oh,
just
yeah.
made the huge difference in your life. So that's probably my biggest takeaway. So both personally and professionally. How about you?
Um, Actually, I have two instructors that I've had. I've taken a lot of classes. I was fortunate when I lived in California. I belonged to a very large guild. And so every month they would have very big name people in for classes and lectures. And so I was able to take a lot of classes from very well-known people. And one of those that impressed me greatly was Ami Sims, who's now retired. Um, and I learned so much from her just in how she worked a room, how she got all the students to do what they were supposed to do, how she handled the difficult students, because there's always one of those. Um, and just how she managed the people. I learned a lot about that from her. And one of the other ones was I was also when I was in California, I lived in the area where Alex Anderson lived. And this was during the height of her first TV show. She was already quite well known in the quilting world. And she taught at our local quilt shop. So I took a couple classes from her. I actually learned how to hand quilt from Alex Anderson. And um, she impressed me with her very down to earth. Always turn off your phone, by the way. I don't know if you
Me
can hear it
too.
going off.
You mean during a class when you're
Yeah.
teaching or not teaching? Yes. There's always
Um,
one of those in every class too.
I know somebody has to do it. Um, but Alex was very down to earth. She wasn't full of herself. She wasn't high and mighty. She was approachable. It was a nice, beautiful experience. And to me, handwork is a four-letter word. I don't really like to mention handwork in public, but it was a great class, and I did learn a whole lot from her. So those two taught me more, not so much about the quilting part, but just how to operate a class, how to teach your students in a
Yeah.
good way. So
What do you think what do you think makes a most impactful class? Like we were talking before we started doing this video about what the word impactful means, like what its synonyms are.
yeah,
Oh yeah,
what
we
was
came
it?
up with a list of I think we came up with a list of synonyms and it was like uh inspirational, most inspirational or most
Impressive, poignant, stunning,
that's it.
effective, moving, rousing, sympathetic. And then there's another long list, but yes.
Yeah,
Um,
so we were talking about synonyms to that. Like, what's the rousing classes? I tend to like do these classes where the techniques are really simple, but you have somebody there to handhold because I do a lot of stuff with color, and so a lot of people aren't super confident with color. So I basically walk around and go, they say, "What do you think of this?" And I go, "What do you think?"
yeah,
Great.
yeah.
So
And
I tend
I
to tell
think,
a lot of jokes and make them
oh,
laugh a lot,
absolutely.
and
It's all about fun, having a good time, make sure everybody's having a good time
yeah.
and that they learn something. And like you said, even if it's a simple class, maybe you can offer one way to do this little part of it, or here's another option of another way you can do that. Or if someone says, well, I want to do it this way, well, let me think ahead.
Yeah.
And here's why that may not work as well, or
Yeah,
knowing,
cautionary tales. Those are the
yeah, and
best.
knowing what you're doing and being comfortable in your knowledge, so that you can impart that to your students
Yeah. I
while
had
having a good time.
I had somebody show up at a scrap puddle garden class one time, and that's a fusible class. That particular class teaches really well as a fusible class. And I've taught it with a couple different techniques, but that was the most effective, I think, technique to teach when you're inside of a classroom environment. And I had a lady that shows up and she just wanted to cut fabric and she was going to hand applique it. And so I was like, "Oh dear. Like this is
That's a
because
long-term project.
if I'm teaching applique, I don't typically teach a hand applique. I will
Right.
typically teach machine applique. So it's going to be some form of either a fusible or, like I do a Terrio Magic class and stuff like that. And I was like, it's not that I don't have anything to teach you, but you're already an appliquer. So I'm not teaching you anything new. So I just basically taught everybody else and then communicated with her about what was her favorite type of applique and had she ever tried this method? She ever had so I engaged her a lot, but there was nothing for me to do. She was just cutting fabric out and pinning it and stabbing herself, pinning all those little leaves everywhere. And I'm like, I can't help you. But in any class, I think from an instructor's perspective, versus taking when I take a class, I want to learn something new. I think
Hmm.
that's the whole reason you take a class is to maybe have some form of fellowship and all that, but you definitely want to learn something new. So whether it's a new technique or just a new pattern or something new that
Yeah.
you've never done before or never tried before, or have that open air to do that. And just even little tips of, like you were saying, as an instructor, if I take a class, it's usually for just an enjoyable day,
Mhm.
and it's to learn about the instructor. Even if I don't learn anything quilting related in there, I will learn how to work a room.
Yep.
Sometimes how
Or how
not
not to work a
to work
room.
a room.
I've taken those classes as well too. It's
I've
like,
taken
oh,
quite a few of those.
that's not a good class. We won't do that.
I have taken classes before where I was like, oh my God, if I took a class not too long ago where I felt never said a word, but I felt the instructor was so condescending.
Yes.
It's like I don't think she wanted anybody to learn. I really don't. I think she just wanted to stand up and talk. Um, and that's painful. That's really, really painful. Um, so, but I
I
always
took a
tell this.
class.
Oh,
I
go
took a
ahead.
class once from a very well-known person, and somebody in the room told her that I was a pattern designer and that I taught as well. And I think uh, she she didn't treat me professionally or courteously after that. And it's like, I'm here to take the class just like everybody else. I'm not going to steal your ideas. I'm not going to steal, it's like just because I'm a teacher also doesn't mean I can't take a class and learn something from you.
Absolutely.
Actually, I just learned how not to react to having a student that's also a teacher.
Right? I had a very, very well known in my one of my classes one time. She took it and um actually came up to me afterwards and said, "Well, I hope you don't take this the wrong way, but she gave me some constructive criticism on my teaching." And I was like, "Well, thank you for saying that." She goes, "Oh, I didn't want to
Absolutely.
hurt your feelings or anything like that." And actually her criticism was very constructive, I felt, and she says, you're not doing anything wrong, but I just thought maybe, having taught something similar, that this method might work for you, or have you thought of this or whatever. I thought it was great. And I remember I got hired once to do at a quilt show, not the class, but to stand up and do one of those talks, a
Yeah.
lecture at the show, and it was on English paper piecing because I had this huge selection of paper piecing templates, and I was there promoting them in my booth, and there were three instructors that were from a very particular, very well-known hand quilting store in the area that were sitting in the front row, just with each other. And I was talking, and from the back of the room, get a lot of questions, and do you like these kinds of templates or these kinds of templates? And it's all an opinion, really.
Right.
And so I was telling them what I do, what kind of thread I use, and somebody asked what kind of needles I use, and I said, well, here's what I use, here's what I use, and I said, ladies, and I just pointed at them in the front row. They were shocked, and I said, I know that you all teach hand applique or English paper piecing as well. Would you let what do you use as a needle and a thread, and what do you use as a needle and a thread? And we all used something entirely different.
Yep.
And so I just wanted to point that out, is that I'm not there to tell you what to do. You
Right.
asked me what I use, and I know other people use other things, so I asked them their opinion. And then I said, oh, one of them used like quilting betweens as her needle. And I'm like, well, that's very interesting. I would never do that because they're too short and my fingers are too fat. And so that's why I don't use those. And so we literally had this beautiful little kind of like back and forth for all of the audience. And the audience loved it.
Yeah.
And so I
Those are
came
awesome.
down off the lecture, and one of them came up to me and said, I said, oh, I'm sorry. I hope you didn't feel I put you on the spot. They're like, no, I've never had anybody do that before. like just asked my opinion, like knew I was an instructor and asked my opinion in class. I'm like, it's an opinion. Like,
Yeah.
don't you think they all deserve to hear everyone's opinion? And so they were just kind of shocked. I'm like, so the opposite happens, where you're not upset that somebody's there. You're like, oh, good. We get like two forms of,
Yeah.
assuming they are fine with you calling them out.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to give them something to, think about. Also, they were in
Yeah.
my, and I'm like, oh, that's gonna quit in the front row. Um, but I tell the students, and even if the class is like a little frustrated, or maybe the class is really getting the idea, and I feel like I'm not doing enough teaching, I walk around and ask them, did you learn anything today?
Yeah.
What did you learn? Did you learn two things? You should learn at least two things in a class. So, and they always have fun, and they always say they learned things when they're there. And so that's really the kicker. I think if you leave a class and you had a really good time, and maybe the instructor was entertaining, it at least informative or entertaining and pleasant, and you had fun with the other students or your friend or whatever, and you learned something new, you got you hit the jackpot, because that's what you want from a class, I think. Um, anyway, that's my
When I do my retreats, at the end of every retreat, I give a feedback form and I ask them questions. And I tell them the reason that I'm asking is if you don't tell me what didn't go well, then I can't fix it because I don't know about it. And if you don't tell me what went really well, then I can't expand on that and improve that even more. So I think constructive criticism or critiquing is a beautiful thing because that's what makes us grow and become better instructors. So,
yeah. Yeah, and I mean, even if you say to somebody in your feedback, I think you were a little unprepared. If you're an instructor who came unprepared, you're unprepared.
oh yeah, yeah,
And if somebody says that on your form, you know it,
yeah.
you know. So I just think even being prepared for whatever comes your way, and and handling the other students sometimes, so that the people who took the class have get something out of it, and they're not derailed by one student. So
Um, so there's one part of taking a class that comes up often, and especially with people that are self-taught and they think that they know every way to do something. And I came up with a good analogy years ago. Now I live in northern New England, and in the springtime we have frost heaves, which, if you don't know what that is, when the weather warms up during the day, the the snow melts into water, which gets under the roadway, and then at night it gets cold again and it freezes. And we know that when water freezes into ice, it expands, so it creates these heaves in the road. And then once the weather all warms up, it goes back down. It's just one of the things we deal with. So there was one day I'm driving down the road and they were doing some construction and they made us all stop. So there was like 10, 15 cars all backed up. And then we got to go. Now, when you're a local, you know where the frost heaves are and you go around them because you know where they are. So I was in the back of the pack, and this whole pack, it just looked like a snake going down the road because they're going around the potholes, except there's one guy in the middle who's just going down and he's hitting every frost heave all along the way. And, come to find out later, I noticed he had out of state plates. It's like, okay, so clearly you're not one of the locals. Maybe you should listen to the locals and learn how to avoid the frost heaves,
yeah,
which it's the same thing in the quilting world. It's like you can learn from somebody else the better way, learn from their mistakes. As instructors, we've all made mistakes. Excuse me. Um, so learn from us the better way to do stuff.
yeah. I'm I know how that can sometimes be. Like I just came out with a foundation piece and curved piecing pattern. And before I started teaching that foundation piece and curved piecing, I actually reached out to several instructors that actually taught that on a regular basis and asked them, hey, if you had to think of like two or three techniques, even just one, but somewhere between like one and three techniques that you teach in your class on curve piecing or foundation piecing that you think I need to know or you think I need to impart, what's the way that you've learned or and several of the instructors were very candid on, hey, I teach people to do it this way because it's easier. I teach people to do it that way because it's easier. And it was very, very helpful. And I reached out to them before I started teaching that class so that I would be prepared for questions and issues and comments that would come up. So I think that's good to know too. Like even if you've been teaching for a really long time, and you're entering into a new topic. So I'm about to do some bag making things, and I'm not a bag maker. I'm not a bag designer. And so it's although I have a pattern for a bag, it's just not in my thinking wheelhouse. And so if I became a bag designer, there would be a whole series of trial and error that I
Oh,
would have to go
absolutely.
to kind of wrap my head around that portion, even though it's sewing and so there's quilting elements and all that. Um, there are just so many different techniques that they know that they've been doing all this time that I haven't been doing. So I think I that's the kind of class when before I before I taught an applique class, I took an applique class from a really well-known applique instructor. And there's always things that you can learn in new techniques and things like that. So I'm excited and I like also working on other designers' patterns because you get to read through how they talk about things and design things. And when I became a designer, I actually kind of modeled my pattern writing style on another designer that I used and liked her stuff. I liked how she explained it, and I like how she, set out her cutting instructions even. And I modeled everything sort of after her. So I think that, and that's just somebody who, why
And
reinvent
there's
the wheel, you know?
there's some really bad patterns out there too that are horribly written and clearly weren't tested.
Yeah, there's something to be said for when you have a pattern where when you're a designer or when you're experienced, even when you're an experienced sewer and you're working through something, we all forget a step because you read something and you go, oh, everybody knows how to do that part. And there's sometimes patterns will jump from like one step to like three steps farther and you don't even realize it.
Yep, absolutely.
Are you done choking?
I am. Yes, I'm good now. Thank you.
Yeah, our viewers, my poor Terry has been choking
Ah,
for the last 10 minutes, but she's good now. She didn't die. I was watching on screen whether I had to call 911 or not.
no, I'm all good now. A little hoarse, but I'm good. Thank
And
God
I
for the mute
see
button.
me button. I see that your moose in the background is purple. So
Yes.
your camera issues your color issues have been solved.
Yep.
Um,
Amazing
so
what a new camera does.
I know we're at a new stage in our life now. You got a new camera. Um, it's winter, so
It is.
you're not dealing with your frost heaves yet, but it's coming.
No, that's a spring thing. So
Yeah.
we'll get there.
So yesterday I talked with Terry and she was in the middle of a ice storm. It's like this call might go through and we may get cut off at any second.
Yeah, I went out this morning and it's very icy outside, but pretty.
Yeah, super pretty, super pretty. I saw the Terry has a bird feeder in her backyard with icicles hanging off and it looks like
Oh,
a tiny
poor
icicle
little
jail.
the poor little birds. Yeah, the icicles were all the way from the top to the bottom. It's like they can't they're like hovering around trying to get in. It's like poor little birdies. So I had to go out
Meanwhile,
and knock them down.
the birds are having to kick squirrel in the face to get to everything because he's been eating all the bird seed out. Um,
Well, I watched
anyway,
the squirrel this morning. He was trying to climb up the bird feeder, but the pole is all iced. It was an entertaining morning.
that's the best. Squirrels are just funny. So my son has just moved to New England in the state where Terry lives, and he drove up yesterday so he could take possession of his apartment today. And I've gotten 4 videos of squirrels in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Just squirrels on the street. There's a tree outside in the middle of the city, and he's obsessed with the squirrel. So that's kind of funny.
He'll make friends with them. They'll have names.
Yeah, exactly. They probably do already. All right, we have this is our February video,
Yep.
and we have a video upcoming. What are we doing next time? Do you remember?
Next
I
time
wrote it down.
is pre-wash, yes or no?
That's an age-old
The
battle.
age-old question. Should we pre-wash, yes or no?
We can duke it out. We're gonna duke it out next
Yep.
month over whether or not to pre-wash and how did we all get here? Why are we still fighting over this topic? I have an
And
answer.
I think the answer has changed over time for that for me, but we'll talk about that next month.
Many, yeah, yeah, we'll touch on that. So, if there's any topic that you would like us to touch on, we're happy to have long chats about whatever it is that you would like us to have long chats about, and I'm sure we'll have plenty of entertaining stories.
And
Um,
guests.
and guests. Yes, we were talking
We
about
have
doing
guests
some.
coming up.
We do have guests coming up, and I'm sure that I will have, no matter what the topic is, I'm sure I'll have a good penny crashes and burns story about that because that tends to be, I live my life like a dumpster fire.
And I'm always there to record it for you.
So it's somewhere between 12-year-old Boy Scout camp and dumpster fire.
That's a
Captain
broad
Chaos.
range.
I'm Captain Chaos. So
It's always an adventure.
it is. It is. Well, I really appreciate your time talking to me. I can't wait to put out a new topic and I'll see you next month. We can't talk till next month.
Hopefully, my voice will come back by then. So, if you've enjoyed us today, please like and subscribe so that you can get notified of our next upcoming podcasts. So,
Misadventure. That's
yes,
right. Vodcast. It's a vodcast.
too many new words for me. And the
I
next
just made
one,
that one up.
we may do the next one together in the same state.
Yes, it's
Maybe.
true. I have some travel coming up. That is true because nothing says leave cold lake weather in January to go
And
up
head
to
to
where it's
northern New England.
beyond cold. I've had to shed, I think my blood is thinned and I've shed all winter clothes. So now seems like a great time to go up. I think it'll be
And
awesome.
every time you've been up here in winter, it's always an adventure. So I'm hoping to further that tradition.
Repeat it. If we repeat that and we get it on video, I will
Oh
put
no,
it
I
on
have
this
something
channel.
special in mind to amp that up a little bit.
Oh no, no.
It'll be
We're gonna
fun.
put we're gonna put it
It'll
on
be
the
fun for
vodka.
us. I don't know about you.
That's what she does. All right. Thanks for joining us. We'll see
See
you
ya.
next time.